Chapter 4. Work has just begun.
Take this.
The robot, its name was Freddy, right, said as it pulled out some kind of item and held it out for them to take.
It is a novelty Freddy phase watch.
Though Mono was more trusting than Six was of the bear, he was still hesitant when it came to approaching the tall being. Just because he was willing to be trusting, that didn't mean that he was naive. He knew that Six could turn out to be right. He didn't want her to be right, and he didn't necessarily think that she was. But he had to keep his guard up, just in case. Mono cautiously reached for the item and took it in his hand, then examined it. It was small, an orange and blue square on a strap, decorated with tiny details resembling Freddy. The square kind of looked like a really tiny television screen.
I doubt I'd be able to travel through this though.
A what?
Six asked confusedly.
It is a special watch that can do many things. I can use this to communicate with you if we are apart. Here, I am sending you a message now to see if it works.
A beeping tone played suddenly from it, and Mono looked down at the watch, Six leaning over his shoulder to see as well. Mono tapped on the screen, then frowned. At the top of the screen were letters. Mono gazed up at the robot again.
Freddy? We can't read.
Freddy blinked.
You cannot?
Mono shook his head.
I can't, at least. 6.
She shook her head as well.
Oh. I apologize. I assumed that you could. How old are you two?
Mono didn't understand what he was asking. He gazed at Six, who shrugged in confusion as well.
Your age.
Freddy tried to clarify.
How many years old are you?
Mono and Six grimaced when they were given the question.
I don't know. Like, 10, I think? It's kinda hard to keep track of years.
I'm pretty sure I'm 9.
Freddy's eyes narrowed and he hummed as he seemed to think it over for a moment.
I see. Well, worry not. This device can speak to you as well. I will talk you through how to use it.
Freddy then proceeded to explain how the watch worked, showing what each tab allowed them to do. They could look through cameras, look at the general map of the area, and call and talk to Freddy.
You can listen to my messages by clicking this button here.
Mono tapped the button, only to startle slightly when a voice came from the device.
Hello Mono and Six, it is me, Freddy. I will escort you to the main entrance. However, I am unable to leave this room. You should have no problem. There's a button on the wall that will open the door to the back room. I will make it accessible to you now.
That button? He thought it didn't work. It didn't work when they had used it. He and Six turned to look at it again, only to see the red Freddy-shaped light turn green.
He must have some kind of control over that. But not the other door? Weird.
Six went over and pressed the button, and this time, the steel door opened with a loud clang.
Well done, Six. There's an air vent inside of the maintenance room. You will have to climb through the ventilation system and release me from the outside. It may be dark in there, but there is nothing to be scared of. You can do it.
We're not scared of the dark. We've gone through vents before.
Freddy seemed to make confused and worried faces a lot.
I see.
Six motioned for Mono to follow her inside, but the boy had one final question.
Hey, Freddy? Can we get 6 a watch too?
I wish I could, but that is the only one I have at this moment.
But what if we get separated? How is she going to call us?
I believe it is best to just stick together for now. You will not have to travel very far to let me out anyway.
Mono, I'll be fine.
Six told him.
We've been separated before. I can handle it. Come on.
Mono paused, but eventually nodded. She was right after all. But, as Six would say, he still didn't like it. The two walked into the back room and looked around, noting that there was another door that they couldn't open, and an odd-looking capsule near a stack of boxes. That stack of boxes led to an open air vent. Once they found it, they looked at each other and nodded silently. Mono climbed up first, and Six followed behind him. This was familiar to them. Vents had been a safe space for them most of the time, since monsters couldn't follow them inside. Well, most monsters anyway. But Six didn't have to know about that. All was going well until they heard a new female voice from further in speaking.
Your performance was perfect tonight!
Mono and Six tensed and froze, ducking themselves down a bit.
Thank you.
The same voice replied. The boy slowly and quietly started crawling again, making his way closer to it, Six following at a similar pace.
Your hair is beautiful. Your tail is beautiful. Everyone was watching you. Everyone loves you. Everyone wants to be you.
There was a fork in the vents, one leading to a grate. Mono crawled up to it to look outside. There was a room similar to that of Freddy's, but with purple and green instead of red, blue and orange. Looking down, he could see one of the other creatures that he had seen on stage earlier. This one was the wolf, a female wearing red and black, with a grayish-purple body, silver hair, with a single strand of green. She appeared to be looking in a mirror, talking to herself.
You are the best!
She proclaimed, then switched into another tone to answer herself.
Thank you. I am the best. I am the best.
Mono felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned from staring at the wolf to see Six just behind him. She jerked her head to silently tell him to start moving again. He nodded, crawling back from the grate and making his way down the other way. As they continued through the vent, a new noise made them flinch. There was the sound of crashing and smashing, getting louder and louder the further they went. With their guard up, they crawled closer until they found another vent grate. Mono tried to peek outside, but it was too dark in the room to make anything out besides the color green. Instead he continued crawling, trying to ignore the stressful sounds. Soon the smashing started to fade out, and was being replaced with another strange noise. It kind of sounded like music. Another ventilation grate appeared, and Mono looked out to see another room similar to Freddy's, this time pink, and this time housing another one of those robot creatures. Her body was in similar shape to the wolf, but with a white body and a pink outfit. Mono couldn't really tell what she was supposed to be, but considering that she had a beak, she was probably some kind of bird. The bird was playing that instrument he had seen her holding on the stage, which was apparently where the music was coming from. Besides that, she was completely silent. Focusing back on the mission, Mono and Six continued through the vent until they had finally found the exit. Mono pushed the grate open and hopped down to the floor, Six following a few seconds later. Now they were in what looked to be some kind of museum, but filled with things that mostly looked to be toys resembling the robots they had seen. There were posters and character cutouts as well, of other creatures that they hadn't seen before. The lighting was odd, with bright colors again instead of a simple white or yellow light. Suddenly that loud voice from the stage came from somewhere again, making the kids jump.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for visiting, and we hope you enjoyed the show. Freddy and the gang are pretty tired, but they'll be back again next week after a few days of scheduled maintenance. Please make your way to the front of the building, where you will be given novelty glasses, a voucher for one free soda refill, and where you will sign a legal disclaimer releasing us of all liability for anything that might have happened during your visit. Have an awesome night, and we'll see you again soon.
Of course, Mono had no idea what any of that meant.
Come on.
Six said, tugging on his sleeve.
We don't have time to look around. Let's just let him out so he can take us outside.
Mono nodded. They began to make their way back down the hall, hopefully following the same way they had come from through the vents. Thankfully it looked to be correct when they saw a pink room through a large window, the bird robot playing that instrument again while she looked in the mirror. The next room had the window blacked out, with signs over it that they couldn't read, but they could clearly hear the loud bangs and crashes from the other side. Lastly, they passed by the wolf's room again and then to Freddy's room, still mostly blocked by the curtains except for a small sliver. Mono looked inside and saw Freddy on the other side, and waved to them when he saw them. Hesitantly, Mono waved back.
Mono, hurry up.
Six whispered harshly as she went around towards the door to the room. Mono followed her, only to see her struggling to pull it open. After a few seconds, she kicked it angrily.
The stupid door won't open.
Mono pulled up his watch again to talk to Freddy.
The door won't open. Is it locked?
Oh, you are going to need a photo pass to open the door. Apologies, I assumed you had one already. Well, you should be able to find one at a convenience counter.
Okay. Where would one of those be?
There should be a large storm door near you down the hall. You can lift it up and crawl underneath to enter a new area. The photo pass will be in a music box that looks like a present. To get it out, just turn the crank a few times.
Mono and Six looked at each other and shrugged. Seemed simple enough. They found the storm door within seconds. Mono was able to lift it up for Six to crawl under, and then she held it up for him to crawl under. Once inside, they looked around the room, only to see a lot of things everywhere. There were lights, screens, cardboard cutouts, and more. How were they supposed to find a present in all of this color?
Freddy, there are too many things in here. We can't read the signs.
Just look for a cardboard cutout of myself. It should be near the feet of it.
Oh, there.
Six said as she pointed towards the direction of the Freddy picture, with a glass bowl over his head and holding what looked to be a gun.
Does Freddy have a gun?
He certainly hoped not. He didn't want to have another experience like they had with the hunter. At least the gun Freddy had in the cutout wasn't as big as the hunter's gun. Six ran up to the present at the cutout's feet and turned the crank, a soft music box chiming from within. After a few seconds, the top popped off suddenly, making her jump back in surprise, but calmed down when nothing else happened. She looked inside the present and reached in.
Got it.
Six said, pulling out and presenting a card to Mono. The boy spoke into the watch as Six stood up to leave with him.
Freddy, we got it.
Good job. Now, please come let me out.
The trip back was short, and soon enough, they made it back to Freddy's room and opened the door with the card. Freddy was waiting right behind it apparently, which startled them a bit.
Way to go, superstars. I knew you two could do it.
Mono froze for a moment, his chest swelling just a bit and his face going warm. How come it made him feel nice when Freddy said that? The boy heard a huff and turned towards Six to see her pouting with her arms crossed, her face red as she looked away.
Of course we could. We're not babies.
Freddy smiled sheepishly.
I never said that you were. Still, I am proud. Anyway, I know how to get you out of here. Climb back into my chest cavity. There is still time, but we must hurry. If I am spotted, I will certainly be taken back to my room. I will escort you to the main exit through the utility tunnels. It is the safest path.
Mono was a bit hesitant to go back in there. There wasn't a lot of room for him and Six. But, again, he found that they had little choice.
Oh, okay. Just be careful when moving around.
We don't want to be crushed and twisted into a meat pretzel.
I can assure you that that will not happen. I will move slowly to ensure your safety.
Freddy's chest plates opened for them, but he was a bit too tall for them to climb in by themselves. Thankfully, Mono and Six were used to it and knew how to deal with it. Mono crouched as he knitted his fingers together, allowing Six to step up on it as a stool. With that boost, she climbed in, and reached her arm down for Mono to take, and pulled him up inside as well. This time, they were in a slightly different position, with Six at the back and Mono sitting in front of her, instead of side by side like before. It actually allowed them a bit more room as well.
Are you two alright in there?
Freddy asked as he began to walk.
I'm fine.
I'm okay too.
Something about this was reassuring to him. Six had her limbs wrapped around him, almost in a hug. She was warm against his back. Mono closed his eyes in guilt.
And I had the nerve to think she was going to betray me back in the tower. How awful am I?
He didn't want to think about it anymore, and decided to distract himself with something else. The boy had enough room to pull the watch up towards his face and tap the screen. While inside of Freddy's chest, they couldn't see anything, but perhaps they could see through the camera system? Actually, a new tab popped up on the screen. He didn't know what it said, but he tapped it anyway to see what it was. Meanwhile, he felt Six resting her chin on his shoulder to see the watch's screen as well. Apparently the new tab allowed them to look through Freddy's eyes. That was what it appeared to be. They watched and felt and heard as the bear opened a double door to walk into and down a stairwell. Something black scurried across one of the walls, disappearing into the darkness below. It was so fleeting that Mono barely even caught it, and almost thought it was his imagination until he felt Six stiffen behind him. He turned his head slightly towards her, silently asking her if she had seen it too. She gave a small nod in confirmation. However, Freddy didn't seem to notice. Or if he did, he didn't show it in any way. He didn't freeze in his movements, flinch, or voice his opinion on it, instead just continuing their trek down the stairs. Weird.